Hi everyone, this is DKeys bringing you a guide to Scepter+Hammer builds following the April 15th, 2014 feature patch. Scepter Dagger and Scepter Focus, when supplemented with a Lightning Hammer, are still very good weapon sets for general dungeoning. Lightning Hammer did not get nerfed with the Ferocity update, but in fact got buffed in that it now scales with the rarity of your equipped weapon. The Ferocity update has made a couple of builds slightly more attractive than they used to be, and so my recommended builds and rotations have changed from the last video. Also, with the changes to Runes and Sigils, Scepter+Hammer Elementalists now have a couple of options for their equipment. The first trait distribution that I will go over, which is the distribution that I recommend if you are the only Elementalist in the group, is a 6-6-2-0-0 setup. In Fire, I recommend Conjurer for your first major trait. This will give your conjured weapons, including Lightning Hammer, 25 charges instead of 15. This will enable you to maintain your DPS rotations for longer fights. The Master level minor trait, Sunspot, is a small boost to your DPS, but not central to this build. For the second major trait in Fire, I recommend Burning Precision, which will give your critical hits a chance to apply burning. This will enable you to maintain better uptime on the Grandmaster minor trait, Burning Rage, which is a 10% damage modifier to burning foes. For your third major trait, I recommend Persisting Flames. This will not only extend the duration of your fire fields, but also give Fury on any of your blast finishers performed in anyone's fire fields. This way, you can maintain both Might and Fury for your group. In Air, I recommend Bolt to the Heart for your first major trait. This is a large damage modifier that activates when your foe's health is low. Like Sunspot, Electric Discharge is also a nice boost to your DPS, but not central to this build. For your second major trait in Air, I recommend Arcane Lightning, which will give you 150 Ferocity for 15 seconds after you activate an Arcane skill. Managing the cooldowns of Arcane Brilliance and Arcane Wave in the rotations that I will show you is central to maintaining good uptime on this buff, which is a good boost to your damage. The Grandmaster minor trait, Weak Spot, will give your critical hits a chance to apply vulnerability. While Lightning Hammer rotations are usually slow and have a low number of hits, this can still help you contribute around 2 to 4 stacks of vulnerability on bosses. For your third major trait in Air, I recommend Air Training, which is a 10% damage modifier while attuned to air. The rotations that I will show you spend a lot of time in air to make use of this trait. And finally, in Earth, I recommend Stone Splinters, which is a 10% damage modifier when you are within 600 range of your foe. Since Lightning Hammer is a melee weapon, you should almost always be satisfying this requirement. Tweaks you can perform to this build, depending on your party composition and on how quick the battles will be, are possibly swapping Conjurer out for Internal Fire for a very small boost to your damage, or swapping Burning Precision out for Internal Fire, or Burning Fire if you believe conditions will be an issue. I would only recommend swapping out Burning Precision if the rest of your party can maintain 100% burning uptime, because the damage modifiers are key to the high damage of this build. The ideas behind the rotations for this build are to, first of all, use the quick to cast skills that are in Air Attunement, as well as maintain very high uptime on the Arcane Lightning buff, especially while you are wielding a Lightning Hammer. For Scepter Dagger, start with Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, and Arcane Brilliance for 2 blast finishers and the activation of Arcane Lightning. Then continue with Phoenix, and then swap to Air Attunement and use Lightning Strike and Ride the Lightning. Finally, conjure your Lightning Hammer and perform 1 auto attack chain. At the end of that chain, use Arcane Wave to refresh your Arcane Lightning buff and benefit from the blast finisher. Then continue auto attacking, dropping your conjure at the end of the 8th auto attack chain if you believe the fight will be over in 55 seconds, or using the last charge and the ghost charge if not. Then use Lightning Strike and ride the lightning, and swap to Fire Attunement to restart the Fire Might stacking combo, which is Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, Arcane Brilliance, and Phoenix. Then use Fire Grab before picking up your second conjure. Use one full auto attack chain and Arcane Wave, and then continue auto attacking, swapping to Air Attunement when it is off cooldown. When you're finished with a Lightning Hammer, again, use Lightning Strike and ride the lightning before swapping to Fire Attunement. The Scepter Focus rotation is pretty similar to Scepter Focus rotations from before the patch. Begin with Dragon's Tooth on your target and cast Flame Wall underneath your target. Follow up with a Phoenix either in the back half of your target's hitbox or behind your target but still inside the Flame Wall. As soon as Phoenix has started channeling, swap to Earth Attunement, and when Phoenix has finished channeling, cast Arcane Brilliance. Since Arcane Brilliance is a heal skill, it will interrupt weapon skills. Then, while Arcane Brilliance is channeling, cast Magnetic Wave, and as soon as possible, swap to Water Attunement. Cast Comet, and when Comet has finished channeling, but before you see the Comet, conjure Lightning Hammer. Then, swap to Air Attunement and auto attack for 2 Lightning Hammer chains. At the conclusion of the second chain, your fire field will be dissipating, so cast Arcane Wave before it is gone so that you can benefit from the blast as well as refresh Arcane Lightning. Then auto attack for 6 more full chains and drop your Lightning Hammer at the conclusion of that 8th auto attack chain. Then cast Lightning Strike and quickly swap to Fire Attunement. Restart your Might stacking combination with Dragon's Tooth, Flame Wall, and a well-aimed Phoenix. Then swap to Water Attunement and cast Arcane Brilliance and Comet. Then swap to Earth Attunement and cast Magnetic Wave just before you pick up your conjure. Then perform 2 auto attack chains and then refresh your Arcane Lightning buff with Arcane Wave in the fire field before it goes away. And then continue auto attacking with Lightning Hammer until Air Attunement is off cooldown. You'll want to swap back to Air Attunement as soon as possible for the 10% damage modifier. When your Lightning Hammer has 1 charge left, which is about at the end of your 8th auto attack chain, you'll want to drop your conjure and use Lightning Strike before swapping back to Fire Attunement. Even though this build does not contain piercing shards, the high uptime on other damage modifiers as well as Arcane Lightning mean that it deals very good DPS. On top of that, the Scepter Dagger rotation will allow you to stack up to 15 stacks of Might if you have Scholar's Runes on, or will allow you to maintain between 12 and 15 stacks of Might if you have Strength Runes. The Scepter Focus rotation will allow you to stack up to 24 stacks of Might, but you will bounce between 3 and 24 stacks with Scholar's Runes, or with Strength Runes you will maintain about 18 to 24 stacks of Might, so it is a very powerful group support rotation. For battles under 30 seconds, you may swap Conjurer out for Internal Fire for a damaging but unsustainable Scepter Dagger rotation. Start with Dragon's Tooth, then Ring of Fire and Arcane Brilliance. Finally, cast Phoenix and swap to Air Attunement, and then cast Lightning Strike before conjuring your Lightning Hammer. Perform 1 Lightning Hammer auto attack chain, and then cast Arcane Wave before your fire field dissipates. Continue with the other 4 auto attack chains, and then drop your Lightning Hammer so that you don't use the Ghost Charge. Then cast Lightning Strike and ride the lightning before swapping back to fire. Use Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, Fire Grab, and then Phoenix. Then pick up your conjure and perform 1 Lightning Hammer auto attack chain before casting Arcane Brilliance. Continue auto attacking with Lightning Hammer and swap to Air Attunement when it's off cooldown. At the 5th auto attack chain, drop your conjure and use Lightning Strike and ride the lightning. At this point, your DPS will be awful, so just camp Air Attunement and use Arc Lightning if the target is still alive. Then swap back to Fire Attunement and begin stacking Might with Fire and Earth. There is a small variation on the 6-6-2-0-0 trait distribution that enables you to use Fresh Air to boost your single target damage at the expense of your cleave damage. In Fire, again take Conjurer, Burning Precision, and Persisting Flames as your major traits. In air magic, you'll also want Bolt to the Heart and Air Training for the damage modifiers, but instead of taking Arcane Lightning, take Fresh Air so that you can swap into and out of air attunement frequently while swinging your lightning hammer. In Earth, of course, take Stone Splinters for the damage modifier. As I stated, this enables you to boost your sustained lightning hammer damage on a single target. However, since it is a low effective power build, I would still recommend swapping Fresh Air out for Arcane Lightning if you are using Fiery Greatsword or Frostbow to quickly take down a boss or a group of enemies. The rotations for this build play very similarly to the rotation for Dagger Focus with Lightning Hammer. However, since the blast finishers on Scepter Dagger and Scepter Focus also deal decent damage, these rotations are much more effective. For Scepter Dagger, begin with Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, and Phoenix. Then, while Phoenix is channeling, swap to Earth Attunement, and as soon as it has finished channeling, cast Arcane Brilliance. Then follow up with Earthquake, and swap to Air Attunement while it's channeling so that it can benefit from the damage modifier while in air. Then, cast Lightning Strike and ride the lightning and conjure your Lightning Hammer. Cast Arcane Wave so that you can get the blast finisher in the fire field, and then begin auto-attacking. Once one auto-attack chain has concluded, swap to Water, and then as soon as possible, swap back to Air. Then complete about 2 more full auto-attack chains and swap to Earth Attunement as soon as it's off cooldown, and then swap back to Air as soon as possible. Then continue auto-attacking with your Lightning Hammer, and at the conclusion of the 8th auto-attack chain, drop it so that you can use Ride the Lightning and Lightning Strike. Then swap to Fire Attunement, and stack Might again with Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, and Arcane Brilliance. Then follow up with Phoenix and Fire Grab, swapping to Air Attunement during Fire Grab so that it benefits from the air damage modifier. Then cast Lightning Strike when in Air Attunement and pick up your Conjure, and then cast Arcane Wave. Then begin auto-attacking with Lightning Hammer again, swapping attunements as you did for the first Lightning Hammer. For Scepter Focus, begin with Dragon's Tooth and Flame Wall, then cast Phoenix inside the back half or behind your target, but still inside the Flame Wall. As soon as Phoenix has started channeling, swap to Earth Attunement, and once it has finished, cast Arcane Brilliance and Magnetic Wave. Swap to Water Attunement as soon as possible, and continue with Comet, and then conjure your Lightning Hammer. Begin auto-attacking with Lightning Hammer, and cast Arcane Wave before the Flame Wall has dissipated. After about 4 auto-attack chains, Earth Attunement will be up, so swap to it, and then swap back to Air Attunement as soon as it is refreshed with Fresh Air. Continue auto-attacking with Lightning Hammer, and after the 8th auto-attack chain, drop your Lightning Hammer and use Lightning Strike. Then swap back to Fire Attunement to repeat this rotation. I feel like with a little bit more optimization, one should be able to get 2 swaps out of Air Attunement during the Lightning Hammer portion of this rotation, but I'm not quite sure how that's supposed to work out just yet. So for now, Scepter Dagger is the slightly higher DPS weapon set for this type of rotation. If you are the second Lightning Hammer Elementalist in a group, or if other party members, such as Warriors, Rangers, Staff Elementalists, and possibly a Mesmer, can maintain 100% Fury uptime on your party, you can take a trait distribution that is higher effective power and enables you to deal more damage. This trait distribution is 5-4-0-5-0. In Fire, take Conjurer so that your Lightning Hammer and other conjured weapons have 25 charges instead of 15. This way, you can maintain your DPS rotation for longer battles. For your second major trait in Fire, take Burning Precision so that your critical hits have a chance to apply burning, thus enabling you to maintain uptime on your Grandmaster minor trait, Burning Rage, which is a 10% damage modifier against burning foes. In Air, take Bolt to the Heart for your first major trait. This is a 20% damage modifier against foes with 33% or less health. And for your second major trait in Air, take Arcane Lightning so that you can have a buff of 150 ferocity for 15 seconds after you use an arcane skill. This buff refreshes any time you use an arcane skill, but does not stack, so you'll want to manage your cooldowns of Arcane Brilliance and Arcane Wave so that you can maintain good uptime of this trait. In water, we take 2 more damage modifier major traits. First, Piercing Shards is a 20% damage modifier while you are attuned to water, while the foe has at least 1 stack of vulnerability on them. The second major trait is Vital Striking, which is a Scholar's buff. That is, you gain a 10% damage modifier while you have at least 90% health. Finally, the Grandmaster Minor trait, Bountiful Power, is another damage modifier. You gain a 1% damage modifier for each boon on you. Stacks of Might count as 1 boon. However, you can also benefit from Fury, Swiftness, even Stability and Aegis, as well as Protection and many of the other boons that other classes can give you. Note that if you're fiery rushing and your group will need more vulnerability, I would recommend taking 3 points out of air to put 2 into earth and 1 into air magic. This way, you can get weak spot so that you can quickly stack vulnerability using Fiery Rush, as well as pick up Stone Splinters for the 10% damage modifier so that you don't lose all of the effective power from this build. The rotations for this build are very similar to the old water camping rotations that you're used to. However, they're modified to better make use of Arcane Lightning as well as the burst damage from Air Attunement. For Scepter Dagger, start with Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, and Arcane Brilliance, then follow up with a Phoenix while swapping to Earth Attunement. Cast Earthquake, and as soon as possible, swap to Water Attunement while conjuring your Lightning Hammer. Cast Arcane Wave because your fire field will soon go away, and then auto-attack with your Lightning Hammer. After about 6 auto-attack chains, swap to Air Attunement and continue auto-attacking. After the conclusion of your 8th auto-attack chain, drop your Lightning Hammer, and then use Lightning Strike and Ride the Lightning before swapping to Fire Attunement. Then stack Might again with Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, and Arcane Brilliance, and then Phoenix. Then use Fire Grab before you pick up your Conjure. As soon as possible, swap to Water Attunement and cast Arcane Wave in the fire field before the fire field dissipates, then auto-attack with your Lightning Hammer. After about 6 auto-attack chains, again swap to Air Attunement so that Water Attunement can start recharging, and conclude your auto-attack chains. After the 8th auto-attack chain, drop your Conjure and then use Lightning Strike and Ride the Lightning before swapping back to Fire Attunement to repeat this rotation. Since Lightning Hammer now uses a higher weapon coefficient if you have at least 1 Ascended weapon equipped, it is important to maximize that damage instead of the Scepter Dagger burst damage, which is why I now recommend staying in Water Attunement longer and not swapping to Water Attunement during the Fire Grab. When using other conjures such as Frostbow or Fiery Greatsword with this build, you will want to be in Water Attunement while attacking with the conjure. For Scepter Focus, begin with Dragon's Tooth, Flame Wall, and Phoenix, swapping to Earth Attunement as soon as possible, and then continuing with Arcane Brilliance so that you don't interrupt Phoenix, and Magnetic Wave. Then swap to Water Attunement as soon as possible to cast Comet and conjure your Lightning Hammer. Perform about 1 auto-attack chain on your Lightning Hammer, and cast Arcane Wave because the fire field from Flame Wall will not be lasting as long as if you had Persisting Flames. Then auto-attack for about 4 more chains, and then swap to Air Attunement so that you can get back to Water Attunement faster. Conclude with 3 more auto-attack chains, and then at the end of that 8th auto-attack chain, drop your Lightning Hammer and use Lightning Strike before swapping to Fire Attunement. Then repeat this rotation. Since this build does not have Persisting Flames, you will not be stacking Fury for your group. Additionally, you will stack about 3 less Might because you will be missing 1 Blast Finisher in each of your fire fields. If you have Scholar's Runes, this means you will hit 0 stacks of Might with both of these rotations if no one else is providing Might. With strength runes, that means you will be hovering between 9 and 12 stacks of might for Scepter Dagger, and between 15 and 21 for Scepter Focus. You can also exchange Conjurer for Internal Fire in this build for a rotation that will last 30 seconds using Scepter Dagger. Start with Dragon's Tooth, then Ring of Fire, Arcane Brilliance, and Phoenix, swapping to Earth Attunement as soon as Phoenix has started its channel. Then cast Earthquake, and swap to Water Attunement during its channel. Conjure your Lightning Hammer and use Arcane Wave for the Blast Finisher and Arcane Lightning. Then auto-attack 3 chains and swap to Air Attunement. Then conclude the other 2 auto-attack chains, drop your Lightning Hammer, and use Lightning Strike and ride the lightning. Swap to Fire, use Dragon's Tooth, Ring of Fire, Fire Grab, Phoenix, and then pick up your Lightning Hammer. Use 1 auto-attack chain, and then cast Arcane Brilliance for Arcane Lightning. Continue auto-attacking with Lightning Hammer while in Water Attunement. At the end of the 5th auto-attack chain, drop your Conjure, swap to Air Attunement, and use Lightning Strike and ride the lightning. If the enemy isn't dead yet, swap to Fire to begin stacking might again and hope for the best. With the April 15th feature update, Scepter+Hammer Elementalists have 2 solid options for their rune sets. The first, which I'm experimenting with, is a full set of superior runes of strength. These runes grant 175 power, 45% longer might stack duration, and a 7% damage modifier while you have at least 1 stack of might. Given the rotations in this video, as well as the extended might duration from these runes, this should be 100% of the time of a battle as soon as you hit that first blast finisher. Your other option is a full set of superior runes of the Scholar. These runes give you 175 power, 100 ferocity, and a 10% damage modifier while your health is above 90%. This modifier is a little bit harder to maintain in battle, because if you do take a hit, your health will likely drop well below that 90% threshold, and since you're using Arcane Brilliance as a heal and as a way to keep your Arcane Lightning buff active, you may not be able to heal for a little while. However, these runes are very worth it if you're going for pure damage, as Scholar's runes are about 5% higher effective power and DPS than Strength runes. However, Strength runes are a much better support option for a group. With a Scepter Dagger rotation, you can expect to sustain an average of 3 more might stacks on your group in battle. Now, what that really means is that when you are going through your rotation, instead of dropping down to 0 to 3 might stacks when your fire field has gone away, you'll maintain about 6 to 9 might stacks so that you can keep your DPS up. For Scepter Focus rotations, you're sustaining about 5 more might stacks, which means instead of dropping to 3 might stacks during the second half of your Lightning Hammer, you're actually keeping closer to 15 or 18 might stacks, making this a much better option for group support in long battles. But for short battles, Scholar's runes will still win out, and especially for fiery rushing, Scholar's runes are better. So, if you could swap between Strength runes and Scholar's runes between battles, that would probably be the most optimal thing you could do. But if you happen to pug more often, I would say just use Strength runes if you can afford them. If you're in organized groups and going for very fast speed clears where you're using Fiery Greatsword to kill most stuff, you might want Scholar's runes. And if you're going for casual runs, maybe play around with both. Regarding the attributes on your armor, a full Berserker's set of armor is 2 to 4% higher effective power for builds that are 5 and 6 in air than Assassin's armor, because Assassin's armor, and even mixed armor to a lesser extent, will push you over that 100% critical chance cap. For builds that are only 4 in air, Assassin's armor pulls ahead by less than 0.5%. For any of the builds, and for either rune set, I would recommend a Sigil of Night and Sigil of Force on your primary nighttime dungeon weapons. For any daytime dungeons that you frequently run, I would also recommend a Slaying Sigil and a Sigil of Force. And for other dungeons, perhaps a Sigil of Battle and Sigil of Force, though you don't really need the additional might stacks in organized groups because you will be stacking at least 15 might, if not more, on your own. Other weapons that you will probably want to buy are a weapon with a Sigil of Energy for more difficult boss battles, and you will want to stack Bloodlust whenever possible. To keep those Bloodlust stacks when you swap to damage modifier Sigil weapons, put a Sigil of Bloodlust on your Trident as well. For your trinkets, use full Berserker's trinkets of the best rarity that you can afford. If using Berserker's armor, you'll want to get about 3 or 4 precise infusions so that you can get your precision or crit chance to the next percent, which should be right around 99 or 100% with a lightning hammer. And for mixed and assassin's armor sets, use full power infusions. For most builds and most armor sets, you will want to use sweet and spicy butternut squash soup as your food. After Signet of Fire, Lightning Hammer, Banner of Discipline, and Fury, you will be sitting at 98 or higher % crit chance, and so the additional precision from truffle steak or butternut squash soup is often wasted. For builds that only have 4 in air, while using Berserker armor and no infusions, you will want to instead use curry butternut squash soup so that you can cap out your precision. In some cases, you may want to use seaweed salad, which is a 10% damage modifier while moving. Note that this does not activate while you are fiery rushing, so choose wisely when trying to plan for an especially speedy dungeon run. For casual dungeon runs, you can use plates of steak and asparagus so that you can benefit from the additional power, or Minotaur steaks for the ferocity, though the steak and asparagus is the better choice. Whenever possible, use slaying potions for your dungeon runs. The 9 to 10% damage modifier is very useful and again scales very well with the high damage of Lightning Hammer. When in a dungeon that does not have an appropriate slaying potion, use sharpening stones for the additional power. In Fractals, you may also want to think about using Scale Venom to apply vulnerability and weakness to foes to help keep you and your party mates alive through the harder hits and keep vulnerability to kill things faster. Other consumables you may want to think about bringing are Harpy Feathers and Ash Legion Spy Kits so that you can get difficult to reach skill points in ore or stand on switches in the Dredge Fractal. I also have a large stash of fire elemental powders still, and the fire fields that these produce can still be blasted in for Might and Fury, though their 30-minute cooldown makes them much less useful than they were previously. The Scepter Dagger weapon set has some skills with very high coefficients, making it preferable for battles where you want a high amount of burst damage. However, some of these weapon skills have some finer points, and some other weapon skills have useful applications outside of battle. In fire, Phoenix not only does decent damage when you aim it inside the back half or behind an enemy, but when it returns to you, it will remove a condition as well as apply vigor. Fire Grab has a higher coefficient against burning foes, and so if the foe is not already burning, make sure you precede it using either a Dragon's Tooth or, if necessary, a Flame Strike so that you can benefit from this higher coefficient. Note that the burning applied by Ring of Fire only activates if the foe crosses the Ring of Fire, and so it is not a reliable source of burning. In water, if you are using a build with piercing shards, you should use ice shards as your auto attack if you are left without any conjures to use. You should supplement this with Shatterstone for the vulnerability as well as the damage. Water Trident will heal any nearby allies in the AoE. And Frost Aura is an instant cast that will reduce damage dealt to you for a short time. Finally, Cleansing Wave will heal and remove one condition from yourself and any nearby allies. In Air, Arc Lightning is the auto attack that you should use if you are using a build that does not have piercing shards. You should make sure you let it fully channel in order to benefit from the stage 3 damage. While you are channeling Arc Lightning, you can safely cast Lightning Strike and Blinding Flash because they are instants. Lightning Strike is decent damage, and Blinding Flash will apply blindness to your foe. Both of these have no cleave, and Arc Lightning will hit anything between yourself and your target. Note that I include Lightning Strike and Ride the Lightning in many of the rotations now because they are very fast casting and have decent damage coefficients. Updraft will apply swiftness to yourself and will launch a foe a short distance, so it is a useful interrupt if your foe does not have any stacks of Defiance. You can also use it to apply swiftness to yourself to get around faster. In Earth, Rock Barrier will give you a little bit of toughness. Dust Devil is a small amount of damage, and if you are not using Arcane Brilliance, should replace it in any rotations while in Earth, and applies blindness to foes. Earthquake is a blast finisher that I frequently use in rotations, but Churning Earth is often a DPS loss, so use it only if you find yourself in Earth without a conjure. And this DPS loss is even including the damage from bleeding. Using a focus, you are able to use the many useful skills that the focus has. In Earth, this is Magnetic Wave, which will reflect projectiles for a few seconds and cleanse conditions from you. And Obsidian Flesh, which is a 4-second invulnerability. In Air, you have access to Swirling Winds, which will destroy projectiles for 6 seconds, as well as Gale, which will knock down one foe and will not put you in combat if you happen to use it. In Water, you have Comet, which is a blast finisher, and a Daze that will remove a stack of Defiant from bosses. And in Fire, you have Fire Shield that will grant might to yourself and apply burning to a foe if you happen to get struck while Fire Shield is active. Also, Flame Wall is a longer lasting fire field that will apply burning as long as your foe is standing in it. For your heal skill, I recommend Arcane Brilliance. It is not only a blast finisher so that you can stack more might and possibly fury, but it will proc your Arcane Lightning trait to help you maintain that 150 extra ferocity. If you need condition removal, I recommend taking an offhand focus so that you can use Magnetic Wave in addition to Phoenix to manage your conditions. And if you need a better heal, then you can possibly take Glyph of Elemental Harmony, but using Arcane Brilliance next to enemies will also boost the healing of that skill. For your slot skills, Signet of Fire will help boost your crit chance from the low 90s to the high 90s. And Arcane Wave is another arcane skill that is a blast finisher so that you can stack more might and possibly fury, and proc Arcane Lightning yet again. And of course, central to this build is Conjure Lightning Hammer so that you can sustain your DPS between bursts of Scepter, Dagger, or Scepter focus, damage, and blast finishers. Other skills that you may frequently use with this build are Conjure Frostbow and possibly Glyph of Storms. Conjure Frostbow is good against groups of enemies as well as large enemies, since you can hit many things using the AoEs from Frostbow 4 and 3. You can also use Arcane Shield instead of Conjure Lightning Hammer for fights in which you'll be fiery rushing. Arcane Shield will usually enable you to safely fiery rush. Your elite, in most cases, will be Conjure Fiery Greatsword, as it is a huge DPS increase when you are able to rush and whirl against a wall. Occasionally, if you are in a battle in which you can't fiery rush against a wall, you can take Glyph of Elementals for a small DPS increase. When cast in fire, you have a small increase to AoE damage, and when cast in air, you have a small increase to single target damage. You can also cast this in Earth Attunement for a face tank that will grab the attention of bosses with simple aggro mechanics. Pre-stacking might is often not a significant DPS gain in rotations short of what you get from starting a battle at 25 might. If you are pre-stacking, say during a cutscene or in preparation for Frostbow or Fiery Greatsword, use as many blast finishers as you're comfortable using, saving Arcane Wave if you are using Arcane Lightning. With Fiery Greatsword, use Fiery Rush and Arcane Shield if necessary to complete the rush safely. Then use Fiery Whirl, Firestorm, and one full auto attack channel. Then Fiery Whirl and Fiery Rush again. After this, stack Might if you need to, or use skills 1, 3, 4, and 5 as they come off cooldown. Frostbow is meant to be more of a supplement to your rotation than a replacement. Stack Might either before the battle or rotationally, and then conjure Frostbow when you reach your preferred attunement. Use Frostbow 4 and 3, and possibly even lead off with 5 if fighting a boss for the 5-second disable. And once you are done channeling skill 3, drop it and conjure your Lightning Hammer to continue your rotation. Note that the weapon strength of all conjures scales with the highest rarity of your equipped and active weapons, so anyone using a conjure should have at least one ascended weapon in their active weapon set. That's all I have for now for Scepter+Hammer Elementalists. Thanks for watching!